Hey, good morning. It is Wednesday. Wait, hang on one second. I forgot something. So just wait just a second. All right, that's better. Um, just feel a little bit more comfortable around here. I call it Jayhawk Wednesday. Um, we all do what we've got to do to get through this time. We give the Cornhuskers everything through the course of the week, but Wednesday is Jayhawk Wednesday. So we are we're on Wednesday. Our love bombardment question for the day is: you have the funniest blank. You have the funniest smile, the funniest laugh, whatever it is. So go around and love each member of your family. You have the funniest blank. By the way, yesterday game we played cards again and wasn't pretty. Julie destroyed me. But we're continuing to prepare for Easter. And what I've been doing is I've been reading through the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, reading all the accounts up to the resurrection. So basically through the cross, just to just to renew my mind, just different perspectives that the authors talk about. And what strikes me is none of the circumstances that happened to Jesus were a surprise. Next time you have an opportunity to read, none of the circumstances that happened to him were a surprise, which confirms what we talked about on Monday, I think, when we talked about Jesus knew that he came to die. That was the purpose. And God the Father ordained it, Jesus embraced it, but the purpose was for his advent was to be our sacrifice for sin. Um, One of the situations that catches my eye, Gospel of Mark. Jesus had just gotten through with the Lord's Supper. He's on the southern steps. Then, on his way to the Garden of Gethsemane, on his way up to the base of the Mount of Olives, which is where the garden is, somewhere in there, he tells the apostles that upon his arrest, he's predicting to them, guys, I'm going to be arrested. And they still don't get it. But he says, upon his arrest, and he's looking at his apostles, he goes, you guys are going to scatter. You guys are going to run. Well, I'm thinking, how must that have felt to the apostles to think, wait a minute, you're going to be arrested and we're going to run like scaredy cats? That had to kind of be a jab, but I don't think Jesus meant it to be a jab. It's just prophecy that's going to come true. And I want you to see how Peter responds to what Jesus says. It's found in Mark chapter 14, verse 29. This is what he says. Remember, Jesus has just said, hey, guys, I'm going to be arrested. You guys are going to scatter. So Peter responds in chapter 14, verse 29. Peter said to him, even though all may fall away, yet I will not. So Peter's like, Jesus, you can count on me. I'm going to be there through thick or thin. Now, get Jesus' response. Jesus answers him in verse 30, and Jesus said to him, truly I say to you that you yourself, this very night, Peter, a cock crows twice, you shall deny me 3 times. Now, some of the other gospels say before the cock crows. Mark says before the cock crows twice. They're not in conflict with one another. They're both true statements, but from different perspectives. So, ouch. That prophecy from Jesus must have really hurt to the core of who Peter is. You can't imagine how, wait a minute, I'm going to stand with you. And then all of a sudden Jesus says, hey, Peter, before the cock crows twice, you're going to deny me 3 times. Wow. I think we don't like to look at ourselves as inadequate. We don't like to look at ourselves as weak and frail. Peter certainly didn't want to look at himself that way. Peter wanted to show that I've got the strength to stand by you. And Jesus said, hey, in your humanity, it's going to catch you off guard and you're going to deny me. And I think if anything that this pandemic has revealed, it's how frail we are. I mean, consider our economy, boom, it goes belly up in a matter of weeks. Just our need for sustenance, our the worry that comes out. I think it has pointed out our frailty very quickly, and we don't like that. And it forces us, though, in a good situation. God's not afraid to put us in situations where we are crying out for help. And this is a good situation for us to go, God, I'm weak. I need your help. Side point. Fast forward, though, to what actually happened. It's recorded in chapter 14, starting in verse 66. Jesus has been arrested. Apostles are scattering, just like he said. And verse 66. And as Peter was below in the courtyard, and he's in the same area that Jesus is in, one of the servant girls of a high priest came. And a servant girl, they're pretty intimidating. And seeing Peter warming himself by the fire, she looked at him and said, "You too were with Jesus the Nazarene." First denial, but he denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you're talking about." And he went out into a porch area. And then in verse 69, and the maid saw him and began once more to say to the bystanders, "This is one of them." In verse 70, but again he was denying it. And after a little while, the bystanders were again saying to Peter, "Surely you were one of them, for you're a Galilean." Somehow a Galilean looked a little different. They dressed maybe different than those in Jerusalem. In verse 71, but he began to curse and swear. This wasn't just a passive denial of Jesus. He began to curse and swear, saying, "I do not know this man, this Jesus you're talking about." Right as he said that, verse 72, and immediately a cock crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had made the remark to him, "Before a cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he began to weep. You ever been there where you felt like, I failed miserably? You're reminded by your failure. Someone points out your failure. And you're in a state where you literally want to cry. And in this situation, Peter did cry. We've all been where Peter is, where we've failed. When we want to look at ourselves as strong, and then we're reminded of our failures, and we remember our failures more than our successes. But I want to show you Jesus' reaction to him, because remember, as Peter is denying knowing Jesus, somehow they're in the same area. And this was pointed out to me several years ago in Luke chapter 22, verse 61. Right as Peter denies knowing Jesus, the cock crows. Jesus turns, probably from being mocked, but somewhere in the courtyard, Jesus turns and his eyes lock with Peter's. It's recorded in verse 61 of chapter 22 of the book of Luke. Notice what it says. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. So they locked eyes. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had told him before the cock crows today, "You will deny me 3 times." We think of that look, maybe we would judge that look to be one of disgust, like, "I told you were going to deny me. Boy, the guys they surround me with, I can't believe it. You failed." But that's not the look. I remember hearing Dr. Hanna, who was a history professor at Dallas Theological Seminary, talking about that word that's used there. And it wasn't a look of disgust. When Jesus locked eyes with Peter, it was a look of compassion. It was a look of, hey, there's hope. It was a look of, I give new beginnings. I give do-overs. It was a look of, hey, you're going to remember this someday. It was a look of compassion that I came to forgive sins, not punish you for sin, not ridicule you for sin. I came to be punished for your sin. So in this look, it was a look of move forward. Stop beating yourself up. Here's the application. What mistake do you need to forgive yourself for? What do you need to stop beating yourself up for? Cut that ball and chain off your ankle that just kind of is hanging around. We tend to remember what we ought to forget, and we ought to forget what we tend to remember. What do you need to forget? What do you need to move on from? Discuss as a family, what must Peter have felt like while he was denying Jesus? What must Peter have felt like afterwards? What must Peter have felt like after he locked eyes with Jesus? And discuss that as a family. And then we'll see you Thursday morning. We'll see you tomorrow morning for another look into what all this is leading up to in the crucifixion of Jesus. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.